What's up, scholars? Welcome back to another video. Today we are doing part 1 of Wano, and this arc is gonna take a while for me to get through. I am learning because I read like not even 30 chapters. I read all of Act 1, and there's so much happening, like just the information that we're getting, the plot points that are being set up, the characters we're being introduced to, the foreshadowing, and just everything that's happening is insane. I can tell why people like this arc so much because of just like this insane buildup I just know is about to continue building in Act 2, but also have the biggest payoff coming that I am not prepared for. But there's something cooking here. It's gonna be great. It's gonna be wild. I will say, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I think Wano now holds the record for the place that is angered Luffy the quickest. It was just like an instant rage almost. I mean, from Tama and everything happening with her, his rage towards her and how she's been treated, and like their whole situation and Wano itself, and then just when Kaido shows up, I was not expecting Kaido to make an appearance this early in the arc, to have a direct confrontation with him this early in the arc. But here we are. Just, I mean, even the end of this arc with Luffy's expressions, and I'll talk about it later, but he's so angry. He is so angry. We saw him I'm trying to like think through. We saw him like serious and devastated really quickly. We've seen him get angry before after, you know, things happen and it builds up to that anger of his. But I have never, at least for what I'm thinking in my head, I've never seen him get so angry so quickly. There's a lot I want to talk about, but I just want to say, Luffy getting so mad at the very beginning of this arc and then suffering such a quick and final defeat so fast in this arc has just left me ill prepared for everything that is to come. I thought this was gonna follow like a similar format where like maybe you see Kaido and he's moving in the background, or like we kind of meet him but there's no fight and then it builds up to the final fight, like, you know, Dressrosa or something. No, there's a reason Kaido is an emperor, and I am seeing that now. Okay, let's get into it. Let's get into Act 1 of Wano. So I read from 909 to 924. Those are the chapters I read, and though it was like only 20 something chapters, we got a lot. When this arc first begins, we get Cat Viper on his mission to seek out Marco, to recruit Marco for him to come face Kaido. Marco is in a village that Whitebeard has created, or had created, because it was like a home to Whitebeard. Whitebeard we learned was like an orphan, and which makes Whitebeard's connection and his desire to have a family even more powerful. You can see where that need, that desire, and that dream came from. It came from how he grew up, his childhood, and makes me love Whitebeard so much more. I miss him. I love Marco because he's still so attached to Whitebeard. I mean, of course, like Whitebeard was like his father. Of course he's still going to be attached to him. And when Marco breaks down in tears when he's talking to Cat Viper, talking about how Whitebeard was a cheapskate, and he says, but we were okay with it because we knew he was putting his entire share of the treasure into this place. But Marco says he can't come or doesn't want to come with Cat Viper because he feels this obligation to this village that Whitebeard had created. Plus, he's expecting like raids coming from Blackbeard because of their previous scuffle in their war, the Whitebeard pirates versus the Blackbeard pirates. So he's still expecting this backlash from them, so he doesn't want to leave the village undefended. So he doesn't want to go to Wano with Cat Viper. But at the end of his conversation with Cat Viper, he says, if you're going to meet with Straw Hat Luffy after this, I've got a message to send along. I'm curious to know what the message is, because is it, I'm not coming now, but I will come at this date, like at this appointed time, like if you wait like such and such 2 weeks for the raid, if you wait 2 weeks, I'll be there, or something like that. Or there's some, I don't know. It could be related to Ace, because, oh my gosh, Ace. I thought this man was gonna be resting. I thought we would have let him rest. We're not letting Ace rest. He's still coming back and hurting us. That's fine. Anyway, that's besides the point. It could be a message regarding Ace, or something Ace had done or said. Maybe because we know now that Ace had been in Wano and had connections in Wano. Maybe Ace had told Marco about them, so maybe that's what Marco is wanting to pass along. I don't know. But there's something. Marco's sending a message along with Cat Viper so that they can go to Wano. I just don't know what it is. Oh, listen, there's been so many cliffhangers and so many unanswered questions as of late in One Piece that is actually driving me mad. We get the group in Wano already given instructions by Kinemon to act quietly. You have Robin as a geisha. You have Frankie working as a shipment, like a shipwright, like a helper. You have Usopp being a salesman. And then you have Zoro over here so quietly about to commit seppuku, and then attacking the person, accusing him of stealing this ancient blade. And then Zoro attacks and he's like, sorry, Kinemon. It's so funny. It's not, because it leads to so much chaos, but it's kind of funny at the same time. But after Zoro blows his cover, we get back with Luffy's group. They're trying to get to Wano, but they're having trouble because the weather is so outrageously crazy that they're having a hard time navigating it, until this random octopus is suddenly on their ship just chilling with them, and then these koi fish show up, and Luffy, of course, jumps on the koi because he would, and he wants to either ride them or eat them, maybe both. But Luffy jumps on the koi fish and is having the time of his life until they're going up in this river, and Luffy uses the koi fish to bring them up the mountain. Kind of like Reverse Mountain, but like a little bit differently. But they go up the mountain with the help of this koi fish. But as they're going up, it gets absolutely bonkers, and they're hitting a whirlpool. And Luffy decides to use his tummy to let everybody escape. And Sanji carries everybody and gets off the ship and leaves Luffy behind. Even though Luffy was like, oh, don't worry, I'm going to be right behind you. And then he's not. Luffy ends up shipwrecked on a shore in Wano and comes across a dog and monkey fighting each other. Except, of course, they're not normal dogs or monkeys. And I love how Luffy is watching all of this happen, and he's so disinterested in their fight, and he's just like, hey, just don't hit the ship, okay? Like, he's totally fine with them fighting each other. He's just like, well, don't hit the ship. It's so funny. The animals try to turn on Luffy. He uses his haki and just shuts it down instantly. And that is when he takes out these two random people who are apparently in charge of the monkey, and the monkey is supposed to be attacking the dog for something. Luffy knocks them out, and then we get to meet Tama. I am the same as Luffy in this regard. I saw Tama for 2 seconds and I was ready to just protect her with everything I had. She's a precious, precious little child. I love her so much. She's adorable, she's very kind hearted, and she is just wanting a happy life, a good life, a life where she can eat food and drink clean water. I can't say Wano is the arc that has made me the angriest, the quickest. That goes to Whole Cake Island, solely because I'm biased towards Sanji. I will fully admit that. I am biased to Sanji, so everything in Whole Cake Island instantly made me mad. But with how Wano is going and the situation of the people on Wano, yeah, it's gonna make me angry pretty quickly. But Tama is this adorable little girl who has a devil fruit that she can make dumplings out of her cheeks and feed it to animals and control them, which is so cool. That is a cool devil fruit power. I don't know what it's called. We're not told what it's called, but I love that power. I would want that power. She should feed a dumpling to Kaido. Feed a dumpling to Kaido. That's what she should do. I don't know how she'd do it, but if she fed a dumpling to Kaido, because it works on, you know, half humans, half animals, as we see with the horse lady. If she could pop a dumpling into Kaido's mouth, I bet you things would be a lot different. How long does it last, though? Because we don't know, like, if her effect wears off over time, or if it's just like once you're fed a dumpling, you're just done forever. Could she feed a dumpling to Kaido? Would it work like that? If I'm like overthinking her devil fruit power, just let me know. But I mean, Kaido is an animal because of his devil fruit, which the fact that I'm skipping ahead, but the fact that he's a dragon is so cool. I knew he was an animal, like this ancient species and everything, but the fact that he's a dragon is just awesome. I'm not like completely surprised because there's only so many like ancient creatures he could have been, and or at least that I was thinking of in my mind. But still, he looks so cool as a dragon. Oh my gosh, we get more dragons. I have a lot of thoughts about his dragon's form and him in general and his connection to Momo. I have a lot of thoughts. That's besides the point. But since Kaido is a dragon, he is an animal. If Tama fed him a dumpling, would he be under her control? Because then we could do that and Tama becomes the new leader of Wano. I see that as a win-win. But Tama is immediately taken by Luffy. She just is drawn to him, starts calling him Big Brother, and leads him back to her little house that she's living in with her master. I guess it's her trainer who has trained her to be a warrior. And she feeds Luffy, which instantly Luffy is going to be her friend for life because she fed him. And I love when she feeds Luffy and he eats that one bowl of rice and he's because he's so used to being able to eat as much as he likes without thinking about like being short on food, because you know Sanji has always been really good at keeping everything stocked, and the places they've been before have not really been desolate to the extent like this. So when he asks for seconds as if it's just a natural thing to do, and then she's like, well, that's all I had. The funny part was just his disappointment, the pure disappointment on his face as he's trying to act when he realizes that she doesn't have any more. And then he's like, oh, then I was joking about seconds, I'm all full now, thanks. Like, that panel is so funny. But it hits differently when Tama excuses herself and then this master comes barging in and yells at Luffy because how dare he eat that rice? How dare he eat Tama's food because she has not eaten in days. And that was all she had. And as soon as Luffy hears that, you can just see the shift in his perspective, in his outlook, and in the situation. It's like an instant understanding of something horrible going on, because Luffy does have incredible emotional intelligence. He is able to, once he is aware of a situation, he is able to kind of reconcile that and adapt to it very easily. It makes him very approachable to other people, which is one of the reasons why people are so drawn to him, and it helps him in his course of action on how he approaches things. And we see, as soon as Luffy learns this, we see Tama drinking water, trying to get her stomach to stop gurgling by filling herself up with water that is absolutely toxic and should not be drank at all. And Tama comes to Luffy's defense when the master is kind of berating him for eating the food, and Luffy is just unable to say anything to him. And when she's like, no, he saved my life, please don't be upset because I did this willingly. Like, he didn't take it from me. I fed him myself because he saved my life. And that's when they get into the discussion, because Tama's starting to feel ill because the water is poisonous, because, oh, in the land of Wano, only one portion of the entire place has good drinking water and plenty of food. The remaining parts of Wano is a wasteland because of all the factories. If you drink the water, you're gonna get sick. It's basically drinking poison. There's hardly any food, and the animals that are about are so filled with this toxic water that eating them is poison too. And they have to live off the scraps of what just gets passed down by these noble people, by these upper ranks who think they are so entitled to everything, and I'm getting mad. Because of the situation in Wano, their living circumstances are horrible, and Tama could easily move to a different location where she wasn't directly by the water and have a better chance at least getting like a little bit better drinking water, or maybe water that's not as toxic. But she doesn't want to leave the place, this village that had been raided and destroyed by Drake, mind you, on orders of Kaido, I'm pretty sure. Because I think Drake is in league with Kaido, if I remember correctly. Or he might have just done it to do it, to get back at Kaido for something. I don't know. Drake decimated the town, but she doesn't want to leave. Because she made a promise to Ace. Because Ace was in Wano, and he found their little village. They captured Ace at the time, had him all tied up, and they pillaged his crew and his ship for all the food and water that he had, because they were starving to death, because they needed good water to drink, good food to eat. So they pillaged everything that he had, and he let them do it because he was just in ropes, and because he had the flame fruit, he could have easily broken out. He let them eat everything. And after he let them eat, he breaks free and says, got any dessert? I have been doing great, mind you. I have been able to let Ace rest post-war, going into Fishman Island. I made my peace with that, and I was moving on very nicely from Ace's death, and now we're just dragging it back up again, and I'm upset all over again. Because this really just shows how compassionate and how great of a guy that Ace was, despite everything that he thought of himself during that time. Because we know one of the greatest struggles that Ace had was his own self-worth and his identity because of who his father was. And, you know, the question he asked Garp of if it was okay for him to live in this world, if it was okay that he was alive. And yet, despite all that, this is the kind of life he leads, to help and aid others in their time of need, which in itself is the answer he was seeking, is yes. Yes, he was worthy of being alive. His actions proved that. And Tama and him had this neat little connection, this neat little bond. And Tama wanted to go out to sea. She wanted to go on Ace's ship and be a pirate. Ace did not let her because she was like 5, which good on you, Ace. Very nice to not let a 5-year-old join your ship. But he made a promise to her that one day he was gonna come back for her. And Luffy, of all people, to have to deliver this news. Luffy doesn't even tell Tama that that's his brother. He just looks at her and says, Ace is dead. And Tama is so shocked by the news that she ends up passing out. But as the long-nosed master guy is telling Luffy about everything that Ace had done while they were there, Luffy gets all happy because he's hearing stories about his brother. He's getting to see more adventures of his brother through another person's eyes, another person's point of view, and it makes him so happy. But when Tama is getting sicker because of the toxic water that she drank, Luffy decides to go into town to try to get her some medicine, to try to get her some help. He gets these clothes, these samurai clothes, to fit in with everybody else from the master guy, and takes a sword, which is one of the, what is it? And takes one of the 21 excellent grade swords that this master just has chilling here, but is said to be cursed. And Luffy says it sounds familiar, but he takes it anyways. And he's like, well, I'm gonna take this cursed sword. It's not gonna be a problem, even though he doesn't fight with swords. But he takes Tama. Tama ends up waking up and is in denial about what she heard about Ace. She's trying to tell Luffy he's a liar, that Ace would never die before he fulfilled their promise. And it's really sad. And I think the panel that hurt me the most was the one where Tama is yelling at Luffy and she said, but I made him a promise. And as she's crying, and it says, Ace, take me out to sea with you, there's that picture of Luffy. Ugh. I didn't get emotional when I read it, but I sure am getting emotional trying to talk about it. That picture of Luffy, his expression, his face, because he had made a promise with Ace too. And he is, in a way, seeing a mirror of himself through Tama, through the grief that he had and has, is being displayed in a very visible way for him to see of what he was, what he had been going through too. The way, I mean, of course it's different. I'm not saying they're the same. It's just a mirror of, she was in the same place in that first stage of denial and rejection that he was, because he had made a promise to Ace. Ace had made a promise to him. They were gonna do all these things together, and it didn't happen. And that same sort of gut-wrenching reality is hitting Tama at this moment. And when he sees Tama crying, which is another reason I think he just got so attached to Tama, like, right off the bat, is because of her connection to Ace. But he sees her crying, and just, oh my goodness, that expression he has just breaks my heart. Side note, as they're going out, as they're going into this wasteland area to get to another town, Hawkins is here, Basil Hawkins. He's working for Kaido, and he's pursuing Luffy, but doesn't want Kaido to know yet. That doesn't go well at all, but he's here, so he's gonna be a contender we have to face. I don't know for how long, or for how long he's gonna last, but he's one of the members of the worst generation, so he is a contender that we're going to have to square off with. But as Luffy and Tama are going into this wasteland where just everything is destroyed, they run into Zoro, who had saved a lady from being attacked by all these people. And Luffy and Zoro's reunion is so adorable. The way Zoro just lights up and he smiles when he sees Luffy, and then Luffy jumps off with the little dog and like bear hugs Zoro. It's so sweet. I love their brotherhood. And I was so happy to see them together again because Basil showed up and they got to face off against Hawkins. Luffy is so funny because he doesn't fight with a sword, and yet he has a sword. Zoro notices the sword, wants to take a closer look at it, and Luffy's just trying to chunk it, and Zoro's like, hey, no, don't do that. Just let me see the sword. It's so funny. They end up kind of like having to retreat from Hawkins, not because of his techniques or anything, but because Tama is getting ill, like is getting worse, and she's not in good shape. So they are just like, okay, no, we have to go with her. And they end up getting help from this tea lady. I'll remember her name in a little bit because of who she is, but I don't remember right now. I have it in my notes somewhere, and I'll get to it. I'll get to her name. But we get to this town where we get this kind of introduction of Kiku before we see Law's crew spotting Luffy and Zoro, and it's like, oh, we need to report this. So the tea lady and Kiku bring Luffy and the others in. They treat Tama. They expose the poison from her, and they give her actual good food. The tea lady is so funny because Tama does not want to eat because she thinks it's a shame, and the lady forces her to eat. It's so funny. And Kiku is very tall, and Zoro is just so blonde. He's just like, wow, you're big for a lady. I'm like, Zoro, stop. She seems like a very good character. And as they're eating, Luffy's irritation, you can really see it growing when he's like, they're not even able to eat a decent meal. It's played off as humor because he's like, well, at least as an adult you can handle poison. And the ladies are like, no, you can't. Because it's like, Luffy, that is a you thing specifically. Not everybody can just be okay with ingesting poison. And he's getting angrier just thinking about it. And when they ask for introductions, Zoro is going by Zorojuro or something like that. And Luffy, of course, is about to introduce himself as just Monkey D. Luffy. And Zoro's like, he's Luffy Taro. And Luffy's like, yeah, that's right, I'm Luffy Taro, what he said. Like, they're such dorks. I love them so much. But we get the idea of the Paradise Farm and how it was up there with the Kozuki clan, that it was created up there. And that's where all the good food and drinking water is, but they don't have any access to it. They get the scraps that are left over because the Shogun hoards all the food and water for himself and his chosen people up there and leaves everybody else to rot, which is, you know, a great way to run a country. Tama ends up getting kidnapped, and Zoro and Luffy end up chasing after her, but Kiku joins along saying that she's a samurai. And yes, she is, and she's really cool. And that's when Law gets the information that Luffy and Zoro are kind of doing their own thing, and he gets so irritated. And the best part of this arc, humor-wise, was just Law being so stressed out. Law being stressed out at literally everything Luffy does is so funny because the guy cannot catch a break because Luffy is so unpredictable. You can't ever know what he's doing, and poor Law is just so stressed about all of it. It's so funny to me. The only reason it's funny is because I know if I were in his same shoes, I would be just as stressed. Like, put me in the One Piece world and I am like Law. I will be totally stressed out over everything Luffy's doing. But still going along with everything Luffy's doing, just being stressed about it. It's so funny. But Tama gets taken to this lion guy who is trying to figure out how she ended up controlling the monkey. Tama, of course, is not going to tell him because she's a great person and a good little samurai. But lion guy is not satisfied with that and decides to threaten Tama with pliers and saying, oh, I as a full-grown adult am going to sit here and use pliers on this little child to get what I want. Okay. And he ends up torturing her with these pliers, like literally literally attaching the pliers to her cheeks and yanking on them to try to make that's not how her powers work, so it wouldn't have worked to begin with. And he doesn't give up. He just keeps on torturing her, even when it's not working. When Luffy arrives, he ends up using his haki to knock everybody out, and they're approaching this ginormous wrestler who wants Kiku as his bride. She has refused him so many times, but he doesn't take no for an answer, of course. And Luffy's trying to ask, for information on where Tama is. He's getting ignored. Kiku gets snatched. She gets snatched by some of the wrestler's men, and she ends up showing off a little bit of her skills and chops his top knot off. And Luffy, of course, is impressed, and Zoro's just like, oh, this is getting interesting. From there, Kiku's, I think she might have, I don't know. I was wrong about having like some sort of split personality with third eye. I might be wrong about Kiku too, but it really does seem like she kind of switches up. Like, she seems very confident whenever she was like fighting, but then it's just like she turns very timid right afterwards and says, oh my goodness, I don't know what I was doing, I'm so sorry. Maybe she just has confidence in battle, but not out of battle, I'm not sure. Besides that, Luffy ends up stepping in to protect her from the samurai guy, from the wrestler guy. And they end up having a like sumo match of sorts, and Luffy just stomps him. He just completely knocks this guy out using his powers. Like, he's dodging like a boss, and then he ends up like one-shotting this guy when he stretches his arm out, because he can make his arm bigger than the giant sumo wrestler himself. I love the panel when it's Zoro, Luffy, and Kiku all standing together. They look so cool. And as they all start fighting, and this one moment between Kiku and Zoro is so funny when she's like, oh, well, what should I do? Or what should this one do? And Zoro's like, don't play coy. You don't need my help. And she's like, girl. That's funny. That was funny to me. But they're all fighting, and as they're all fighting, we get cut over to Law. And Beppo is sick because I think he drank the water, and Beppo's not doing well. And I love Law's just like at his side trying to like help Beppo. It's so cute. Their relationship, their friendship is so sweet and wholesome. I love it. But we get back into the action, and as they're all fighting, the lion guy, his name is Hold'em, has Tama in the lion's mouth. Luffy's ready to fight. Law is catching up with everybody, but he's so upset with what Luffy's doing. And Law ends up confronting Hawkins with the little thing over his head to not immediately give himself away. Even though after he starts fighting against Hawkins, he gives himself away anyways because of his devil fruit and the tattoos on his finger, which are very distinguishable. Him and Hawkins end up kind of going at it partially, but more so he's just like, Law just kind of disables all of Hawkins' soldiers so they can't join the fight. What we do learn, however, is that Jack, the guy from Zoe that got pummeled by Zunisha, is in charge of this town, and he isn't dead. He survived being underwater, and he's back in Wano, and he's the one in charge of this town, so everybody's scared of getting him involved. Hold'em makes the biggest mistake by making Luffy angry, by tightening the lion's grasp on Tama, hurting her, makes Luffy so mad. They end up all attacking. They're all going to do different things. I think Zoro and Kiku get this giant ship of food that just came in because of something that had happened. So Zoro steals all this food, and Luffy gets Tama so that they can all get on this ship and leave. And then poor Tama, she's trying to pacify Luffy's anger after he gets her. And she's like, oh, you don't have to worry. He only tortured me with pliers for a little bit. I'm telling y'all, Luffy was so mad this arc. Like, when he turns and he's like, pliers? The anger on his face. And then it was over for Hold'em. Luffy went up and he hit Hold'em so hard with Red Hawk. He destroyed him. Still caught he did this so fast too. Like, I don't know if he tossed her or what, but he put Tama in the air, went and hit him, and then caught her before she even made it back to the ground. Like, it happened that fast. But just, I mean, just the anger that Luffy has in this arc already is just so ridiculously palpable. Like, you can feel it. More like, yes, you can see it on the page, but it's like you can feel it. How angry he is. It's insane. I haven't seen him consistently be this angry so long. And this is just the very beginning of the arc. That's what kind of like scares me in a sense, because either he's going to end up incredibly angry throughout the entirety of this arc until it's over, or that anger is going to turn to like some unbridled form of like, I don't even know, like, just, like he's gonna be so angry he's like laughing or something, and that's gonna be scary. Like, just he's so angry and he's just like laughing with this look of rage on his face. Like, I don't want to see that. I mean, I might want to see that, but like, scary Luffy, like, because like he's already so enraged. So like his anger is already like, if this is like normal Luffy level, you know, he's already up here. He's already up here rage wise. And when it was just day one, we still have 2 weeks till the actual raid, and we're already up here rage wise. Where is it gonna go from here? That's why I'm shocked, because the rage isn't just gonna go away. It's gonna sit there. Even if he doesn't visibly show it all the time, that rage is just gonna sit here. Because now, not only does he have a grudge against everybody in Wano because of the food and water situation, and because of Tama specifically and his connection to her, he's got a grudge against Kaido. A personal one now. And that's not gonna go over well. I got off track. I wasn't meaning to talk about Luffy's rage, but I am very interested to see where this is gonna go, because what is that rage gonna turn into? What is that gonna do to Luffy? How is it gonna develop? Is it going to impede his fights, and maybe that's why he was taken out so quickly? Is it going to aid in later fights, because like that fuels his emotions and like builds his power or something? I don't know. But I keep saying it, I'm sorry, but the fact that he's so angry this quickly just threw me off so much. And I'm excited but kind of scared to see where it goes from here. I think it was at this point in the story where I was like, I think this has set a new record for Luffy's wrath just being incurred at a certain group of people. It happened at like the very beginning of Wano. Tama and Luffy, they're all escaping. So Tama and Luffy she ends up getting control of this little horse lady, Speed, I think. I don't remember her name. I know it starts with an S. Oh, what is her name? That's gonna bother me. It is Speed. Her name is Speed. Okay. Luffy and Tama escape on this little centaur, and Law meets back up with Zoro on this ship as they're fleeing from the area. And as Luffy and Tama are going together, I love this because he's wanting to get her out of the mix for good. He wants to send her back so that she stays safe. And as he's taking her away, she's holding him and saying that he's just like Ace. That didn't hurt at all. Yeah, but they're all fleeing, and they end up going to town. I love when Law meets up with everything. I love when Law meets up with them again. He's just so stressed that he's yelling at them, asking them what they're doing, why they're doing this. And it's so funny. It's just hilarious to me, just how stressed the Law is. But they get to this town where Kiku and the tea lady were from, and they give everybody the food. They give them all the food that they had taken, and they get this food, they get water, and this town is just so incredibly happy and thankful, and they're just celebrating at just the barest minimum of food and water that they are able to get their hands on. And they're all thanking Luffy and the others, and Law he's such a shy boy. I love him. Turning away from everybody like, oh, it's unfitting for pirates to be doing these good deeds. Can't believe we're doing this. Like, Sir, you're a doctor. And as everybody's eating and Tama gets this apple, Luffy makes a promise to Tama. He says, don't celebrate like this is special. We'll make it so this is normal. By the time we leave this country, it'll be a place where you can eat as much as you want every single day. That is a huge promise. That is huge shoes to step into. But Luffy, I know he means it. I know he meant it when he said it. And Luffy doesn't really say things that he can't make happen. He will find a way to fulfill this promise to Tama. Right now, I have no idea how, but he is going to find a way because he doesn't say things he doesn't mean, and he doesn't make a promise like this that he doesn't intend to keep. And I love, as he says this, Tama thinks about the promise that Ace made to her when he says, the next time we come back to this country, it'll be a place you can eat as much as you want. I just love that comparison because there's such a subtle difference in the way they made their promises that show their distinction. Ace said, by the time we come back, it'll be this way. But Luffy says, by the time we leave. That small distinction just kind of sent shivers down my spine. Just, I loved that. I love that distinction. I love that. And of course, Tama cries after hearing him say that because she, one, is crying for his promise, and then two, she's thinking of Ace. But then, yes, Speed takes Tama away, and we are then let in on the secret of the whole Ghost of Wano thing. And they get to go up to the Kozuki's castle, where these ruins are, to learn about the Ghost of Wano. But before we can get there, we get this lovely, piece of information about the indoctrination of these children in school. I mean, how blatant can you get? This arc is ticking so many boxes that are just making me angry. I still have 130 chapters to go through. It's fine. But, yes, we get that little bit of information. But then we get back with Luffy and, well, I would say Luffy and Zoro, but Zoro somehow gets lost on the dog and ends up somewhere else where he's not supposed to be. So we lost Zoro again. And then we get Kyoshiro, this samurai guy, talking smack about the shogun and everything that's going on, and then talking about this prophecy that Odin's wife had made 20 years ago. And Robin is overhearing all this because she is a geisha. Geisha? I think it's geisha. She's worked hard enough to get up to these ranks, and she overhears this whole conversation. We get to these graves where all the graves are marked with the names of everybody that we know, like Kinemon, Raizo, Sanjuro, Momo, all of them apparently have these graves, and Luffy is so confused. He's like, is that why we weren't able to get in contact with them? And Law just trolls Luffy. It's so funny. He leads him to believe that they died, when in fact they all have stomach problems from the poisoned water. And after that gets explained, we are reunited with our whole Cake Island group, Sanji and the others. We get reunited with everybody else, so that group's all back together. And Kiku ends up knowing the samurai. She knows Kinemon and gives him a big hug because they're all part of the same tribe, the same clan, and they're all from the same year. And that's when we get this bombshell drop that Kinemon and the others came from 20 years ago. We're time traveling now. What in the Tokyo Revenge? We're time traveling now? That changes a lot because because we don't know how far the extent of Odin's wife, what's her name, Toki. We don't know how far her devil fruit abilities go with time travel. Is it eventually that effect will wear off and they're gonna age, or is it they're just gonna be maybe stuck in that place in their bodies for a while until time catches up with them? Or is it just like they're just 20 years in the present, like no harm done, no nothing, no consequences. I don't know. But we're time traveling now. And the story we get of why we're time traveling, we get Odin's backstory a little bit more of Odin's backstory of how he was the son of the samurai, cast out and banished from the castle, and ended up forming his own sort of kingdom on this side of Wano by getting in charge of all these misfits, of all these outcasts, and forming his own castle, forming his own kingdom. He created all of these things for the people there, and everybody was just getting along. They were all happy, and everybody loved it there. Until something happened. Because Odin had this whole flourishing environment, and who was it? Is Dogstorm that kept saying that Odin was saying that Wano was too small. But we're missing something in the explanation. Something is missing in the explanation, because from what Dogstorm is saying into the next page, hopping into the reactions of Luffy and the others to something that Kinemon said does not match at all. That there's a huge disconnect there, so we missed a major portion of this story or something. Or I mean, I don't think I misunderstood it that horribly that I thought something was missing, but something was definitely missing from Kinemon's story of what happened. Because the next thing we know, Odin was taken to the capital to be punished as a criminal, and Kaido and everybody like attacked and burned everything to the ground, and they started taking over and taking control. And to Kinemon's group, this all happened just months ago, when it in fact happened 20 years in the past, so it's still very fresh for them. That's why their memories, their recollections are so good. But we get more on Toki, who had apparently traveled through time before to get to this point, to reach Odin, which... who was she? Why did she want to reach Odin specifically? I really want to know that timeline connection. This whole time travel timeline thing is really going to start messing me up, because I'm going to start thinking about all these theories and everything, and if it's even... there's a lot to think about now. It's fine. But Toki decides to send Momo and the others into the future. Why was Momo the only one sent? Momo had a sister, Hiyori, that wasn't sent, and is presumably dead along with Toki. Why did she only send one of her children? Why not send both of them? Was it because Momo was the future and the hope of Wano and that clan, that line? Or was it something else? Because, I mean, why wouldn't she send both of her kids? But she ends up sending them 20 years into the future, which is present day. And then we get the explanation of how they found some allies. They still had some allies because of the prophecy that she told, which she knew was going to come true because she had sent them 20 years into the future. Because of that prophecy, they still had some allies on their side, and they were able to meet up with them again. But they had to escape and flee from Wano. And that's how their whole journey started, from the whole business with Dressrosa and Punk Hazard, back to Dressrosa, to now, you know, meeting all the Straw Hats, all of that. So their journey is so fresh, so new to them. That's so incredibly wild, which makes the whole Raizo is safe from Zoe that much more impactful, knowing everything in context from this makes that moment hit even more. I was not expecting time travel, but here we are. But with the allies that they've gathered, they're hoping to have at least 5,000 on their side. It may not end up being that much. I don't think it will, but we can remain hopeful. But with the allies, it says this time, or the time is 2 weeks hence, on the night of the fire festival, we will travel to Kaido's base on Onigashima, Island of Ogres, and carry out a raid. Ooh. So they were supposed to be incognito from here on out, but that didn't happen. So for this raid, they're discussing how they're going to get there, what they have to do in order to get to Onigashima, in order to meet up with everybody to have this raid. And it's such a small thing, but I found it so funny that Sanji ends up beefing with Kinemon, a married man, over Kiku, who is not even Kinemon's wife. Kinemon has another wife, and Sanji ends up beefing with them. I think it's so funny because Sanji and Kinemon's relationship has always just been so funny. It's been like tit for tat with them. And I love seeing Sanji just back to normal and just being happy. And I mean, that makes me happy because I'd much rather him be happy than what we had in Whole Cake Island. So I'm happy to see these moments for Sanji. They talk about the symbol and the insignia that they have to see who their allies are, that mark of like the birds and everything, and then the crescent moon symbol. So they have ways to identify their allies as they're going through this. And Kinemon kind of brings everybody up to speed on like where the other Straw Hats are, what their roles are, what they're doing, and gives the rest of these Straw Hats roles of how they're going to go about like their undercover business during these next 2 weeks. Kinemon changes everybody into their appropriate clothing, calls a real female ninja, much to Sanji's despair. And so they're talking about what they're going to be doing when we get oh yeah, and they're looking for 3 samurai. They want 3 samurai on their side before this happens. They're looking for Kawamatsu, Denjiro, and Ashura Doji. And right after this, I'm pretty sure it's been confirmed. I've had to read this part twice because so much had happened, so I had to read this through twice. Right after Kinemon says that, we are introduced to this Shutenmaru character, this thief in a sense who has caused trouble before. He was mentioned earlier in the arc, and now we are getting to see him. And he ends up going to the village that Luffy and the others just fed and tries to steal all of their food. While Shu is doing that, Jack appears, and Jack is wanting to start a fight with Shu, and Shu one-shots him, just slices him open just like that, like it's nothing. For how much like Jack has been like hyped up to be this like really, really scary character, Shu made short work of him, which I think is on purpose to show Shu's potential, his strength, because I think he's going to be our ally, because I'm pretty sure, like 99.99% sure he's Ashura Doji. I'm like almost 100% sure he's Ashura Doji, but he's just going by a different name right now. But while they're starting to fight, Kaido appears in the sky, because when he flies in the sky, apparently it just messes up all the weather in the area. Like all the clouds are like circling around him and everything, and he descends, and Law's just like, oh, this is bad. And then we see Kaido, he's a dragon, he's absolutely massive. The question I have about Momo and Kaido's connection, because Momo ate an artificial devil fruit, and he's now a dragon in a sense. Does Momo change? Because we see, like, Momo was just fine before Kaido showed up. And then Kaido shows up in dragon form, and Momo turns into a dragon. Are their devil fruits connected in a sense? Did maybe the way the artificial devil fruits were made, when maybe because, like, some blood was taken from Kaido to, like, create these artificial devil fruits, because they're all like animal related, so maybe part of his blood is in them, and like that affects how the artificial devil fruits work, and maybe that's why Momo can't control whenever he turns into a dragon, because maybe it's whenever Kaido turns into a dragon and it's at random and he can't expect it and he doesn't know what's happening. Or is it something else, just like maybe like the presence of Kaido there like kind of like triggers something in Momo's devil fruit that reacts to it? There's something going on there, and I really want to know what. And they're all kind of getting freaked out about, you know, Kaido being there, because they have no idea why Kaido would be there. Law has to inform her, like, oh, well, we blew our cover earlier. And Sanji's like, well, what are you doing? Like, how could you do that? And Law snaps back. He's like, if there's anyone who doesn't have the right to criticize me, it's the Straw Hat Pirates. And then they're like, oh, it must be Luffy's fault. But Law reasons it out that, you know, they only know that they're, like, Luffy, Zoro, and Law are there. They only know of those 3. And they could be relating that to the whole, like, incident with Dressrosa and Punk Hazard. So their whole operation, Kinimon's whole operation, is not blown. That's not been discovered. They don't know about that yet. So they're fine. Luffy, of course, realizes what town Kaido is hovering over and runs after him. And Law decides that he's the only one that should go because if they get spotted, it'll be them two together. Kaido can make that connection and nobody else has to get outed. And Shuten Maru ends up running from Kaido because he doesn't want the smoke, which I don't blame him one bit. But Kaido stays drunk. Like, he stays being drunk. The moment he sobers up in this, like, fight thing, he's like, oh, I'm too sober, I'm gonna go drink again. Are you okay, Kaido? I don't think you are. I have a lot of questions about you. I don't think he's okay. I think I'm extrapolating here a little bit too much, but there's gotta be a reason he drinks so much and he stays in a drunken state so much. There's gotta be a reason why he wants to drink himself into a stupor, why he doesn't want to be sober. I've seen before that in other animes and other mangas where, you know, a character drinks and that's their source of power. I don't think that's the case with Kaido. A lot of, you know, there could be a lot of other reasons why, but I want to know if there's a reason behind it or if he's just a drunk. But Hawkins goes over here and tattles to Kaido about saying, oh, well, you're looking for these people? They might be up here in that castle. And Kaido, I mean, he's a dragon. He has the power of a dragon. He blasts the entire thing to pieces. And oh my gosh, Luffy's face when he thinks for the moment that he could have lost everything. He could have lost everyone in an instant because he doesn't know and he still doesn't know if they're okay. That expression when the blast hits and that close up on Luffy's eye, there's like, you can just see the desperation and just the despair in his eyes, and it hurts so bad because that's another thing that's fueling his rage, is the fear that he's lost people after he went through this entire training arc the past 2 years to protect the ones he loves so he wouldn't lose anybody ever again. And in his mind, he's thinking Kaido took him away just like that. He could have taken him away just like that. And because Luffy doesn't know if they're okay, it's like he just loses it. He's just full on rage mode without thinking about what he's doing. And he even points out to Law, I don't know if I'm out of order or not, but he points out to Law being like, we don't know if they survive that or not. We have to get him. We have to take him down. Take him down and this is all over. And Luffy attacks Kaido. He smashes Kaido's face. He's so angry. He's so angry. And when he lands on the ground, he ends up running into Speed, the centaur lady, who has been mangled on the ground. And Luffy sees her, asks what happened, informs Luffy that they were attacked on the way because Kaido spotted them and she couldn't protect Tama. And there's a little flash that we see of Tama's body on the ground with blood all around and the crushed apple. And oh my gosh, just the fury in Luffy's eyes and his face is just unmatched. And Luffy, what is Luffy's immediate thing to do? He starts blaming himself, which, of course he'd blame himself. Because I would blame myself. He blames himself and he shouts, he screams that he should have stayed at her side. And he didn't, and that is another layer of guilt that is resting on his shoulders now. And when he faces Kaido, Kaido asks who he is, and Luffy says the man who will be king of the pirates. And Luffy goes all out, or seemingly all out, against Kaido. Pummels him pretty good. But as many times as Luffy hit him, it didn't look like Kaido took any damage. It was like everything that Luffy threw at him had no effect. And then Kaido comes out of his dragon form, he's a human again, and Luffy still doesn't relent. He's still going into attack and hits Kaido over and over and over and over again. But Kaido has such little reaction. It's like Kaido acts like Luffy's a fly, that he's being bothered by a fly. And then Kaido one-shots Luffy. One-shots Luffy. I think this is the first time we've seen Luffy get one-shot by somebody and him not get back up. And Luffy's pretty much unconscious at this point. Law, even though Law was kind of in confrontation with Hawkins, Law is able to get away and go into hiding. And though he's unconscious, and Kaido recognizes this too, which is like my one glimmering hope for the future of this arc, is that even though Luffy is down and Kaido notices it too, is that Luffy is glaring at him. That rage seeps through his unconscious to glare at Kaido. And he says, he's been glaring at me this entire time. At least that's how it looks to me. And then, unconscious, Luffy uses Haki and knocks out all these people. And Kaido recognizes that Luffy has the Haki of the Supreme King and is like, oh, well, we can't be having that. He's gonna be a good worker for me. We're just gonna let him calm down a little bit. Oh, I'll deal with Law later. And so Kaido's just going off because he wants to drink again. And they've hurt the town all this much. And we find out that Kinemon's wife is the tea lady. Otsuru. Otsuru is Kinemon's wife. And she has remained loyal and faithful to him throughout these past 20 years. And we end up getting Dogstorm finding Tama. She's alive, thank goodness. He's angry because he's like, Kaido, this is a child. Like, this is a child. But then the news passes around of Luffy's capture to all of the other Straw Hats who weren't aware. And everybody on the top of Oden Castle was okay. They were able to sink down into something and miss the blow. So they're all fine. But everybody else that wasn't there, who didn't experience what happened, get the news about Luffy, and their faces are so funny. I've never seen Robin make a face like that, and I really never want to see her make a face like that again, because it's just so out of place for Robin. Frankie and Usopp make the exact same face. Zoro figures out what happens and is shocked because, oh, why are they so shocked? Because Luffy is forced into hard labor. He's almost forced to be like a slave for Kaido. Forced into hard labor. He's in chains, bleeding, bandaged up, and he's being dragged through this like prison thing to be thrown into a cell. Oh my gosh, he looks pissed. He looks so angry here. Like the way he is glaring at everybody, the way he's just looking around at everybody, and the bandages make him scary. Like the way he's looking right now is actually kind of scary. And Luffy ends up being thrown into a cage next to Kid. And both of them are saying, I'll get you, Kaido. Which just tells me that those two are gonna team up. We're gonna have another team up, another alliance. And that's how the act ends. That's how Act 1 ends. Utter chaos. It went from 0 to 100 and then it just plunged down to where there's like... I don't know what we're gonna do. I don't know what Luffy's gonna do. He's in prison. Are him and Kid gonna have a breakout? Or are they gonna plan a breakout? Like he did in Impel Down, except he was never caught? Like he did in Impel Down? What are they gonna do? What is everybody else gonna be doing? Because it's gonna be so hard for them to try to sit still and maintain their cover knowing that Luffy is where he is. This is not going well. This is not going the way I was expecting this arc to go. It's not going well. We're not doing great. I'm glad Tama is alive. I'm scared for what's gonna happen to Luffy. Not because I don't think he'll be okay, but because of just the fury that he has. His wrath is going to be unleashed in some way, and I'm not sure how that's going to end up. At least that's my predictions as of right now. This was a lot of setup, a lot of information. We got some pretty big bombshells dropped on us in this act. Now we're just in the beginning. This is just the beginning of Wano, and we still got so much more to do. So much more to go through. Oda, you can take a breather. You can chill. It's okay. But yeah, that's my review of Act 1 of Wano. I will be doing the next part of Wano. I don't know if I'm going to do all the way through part 2 or Act 2. I don't know how many chapters it is. But I'll be doing the next part of Wano next week. As I've said before in earlier videos, this is definitely going to take me more than 3 parts. So we're going to be going through Wano well through December at this point. It's going to be great. But yeah, be on the lookout for the next part of Wano that's coming out next week. Let me know what you guys think of this review and this arc so far. What were y'all's impressions of Act 1? Because it's insanity. Just pure chaos. I love it, but I'm also like, okay, that's enough. But I love it. Thank you all so much for watching this video. I really hope you enjoyed it. I have a feeling Wano is going to be an arc of very, very long videos, so just prepare yourself to be here for a while, because I'm going to talk a lot. Other than that, again, thank you all so much for watching this video, and I will see you in the next one, scholars. Bye!